Are you thinking about moving to Newport News, or maybe you're moving to the Hampton Roads area and Newport News is an option for you? In this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of living in Newport News, and we're going to start right now. Newport News is located on the north side of Hampton Roads, and it borders the city of Hampton. Hampton Roads, also known as the Tidewater area, is divided into two sections. We have the north side and the south side. It seems like almost two different worlds because as close as they are so far apart. And I say that because of the way that we get through from each side is just through this tunnel or this tunnel. And if you live out west far enough, there's also an option to go through this way. But the north side of Hampton Roads is where Newport News sits, and that is on a peninsula. Hampton Roads consists of 7 cities total. We have Virginia Beach, we have Chesapeake, we have Norfolk, and let me see if I can scroll down. We have Suffolk down here, and then if I go in, we got Portsmouth. So those are the 5 cities that are on the south side. On the north side, we got Hampton, and we got Newport News. And then when you go a little further, we have the Yorktown area. If you go a little further than that, we have Williamsburg. If you are considering moving to Newport News, then Hampton would likely be on your radar as well. Possibly Williamsburg. Let's start with the pros of living in Newport News. I would start by mentioning the economic opportunities. Newport News is the home of the largest shipyard in the United States. The protected job growth rate in Newport News is 15.68%, and the average salary is $57,463 a year. Additionally, Newport News is in very close proximity to several military bases, providing career opportunities for our armed forces and our defense industries. The next pro I want to mention is the cost of living. Newport News is actually rated 8.5% lower than the national average and 12.2% lower than the entire state of Virginia. When it comes to housing prices, Newport News is very affordable. This is something I know something about. I am a realtor outside of being a tour guide here on YouTube. I've been serving this area for 10 years. Typically, we find that the cost of living and the housing affordability in general is always cheaper over there in Newport News than it would be over in, say, Virginia Beach or especially Williamsburg. Now, you'll find Hampton to be a little bit cheaper than Newport News. Full disclosure, this is all subject to change depending on when you're watching this video, but if you have questions and you're curious about any current information, just reach out to me. My phone number is in the description. That's my real phone number. Feel free to reach out to me if I can help. The median sales price right now in Newport News is $300,000 on the dot. Look at that. A median sales price isn't exactly an average sales price. It's a little more accurate than that. When we say median versus average, median is when you take the total number of prices, 300,000 is right in the center, as opposed to adding them all up and creating an average. So this is a little more accurate. There's a little fun fact for you. So the median sales price, 300,000, and we're currently seeing homes sell for 99.8% of their list price because we only have 1.7 months of inventory. What that means is if we don't list any more homes in Newport News, then we're going to sell out of houses in 1.7 months. That is not a very balanced market. That's a seller's market. It's a balanced market when we see about 4 to 6 months of inventory. Let's compare Newport News to Hampton, and let's see what the price difference is. Hampton's a little cheaper. $282,000 is the average price in Hampton. There's 1.8 months of inventory there. Now let's compare this to a very popular city you've probably heard of, Virginia Beach. $395,000 is the median sales price in Virginia Beach. Let's also compare it to a very popular city you've probably heard of, Williamsburg. Williamsburg is the most expensive area in the Hampton Roads. It's not technically in Hampton Roads, but Williamsburg is right next to it, so we'll claim it. $450,000 is their median sales price, making it the most expensive city around to live in. You'll notice there's only 1.4 months of inventory, so that price is going to continue rising until we see more inventory. If you are considering moving to Newport News, you're also going to want to consider Hampton, like I said, and probably Williamsburg. You probably want to stay on the north side here in Hampton Roads if you are working on the north side. If you work at the shipyard or you work at Fort Eustis or Langley, you're probably going to want to stay on the north side to avoid the traffic that goes through these tunnels. So another area you're going to want to consider and have on your radar is the York County area. That's this area that just borders Newport News, which really consists of Tabb, Grafton, and Seaford. I don't know where Poquoson fits in. I suppose that's part of York County. I don't know. Poquoson is kind of its own little area out here, and it's really a big flood zone, but you may want to consider that area as well. As I mentioned, $300,000 is the median sales price in Newport News. When you compare that to York County, it's $430,000. So it's a lot more expensive to live in York County. York County is more desirable, and the pricing certainly reflects that. Plus, they only have 1.3 months of inventory. So again, that pricing is just going to continue to rise until we see more inventory. If you're moving to the Newport News area and you don't feel like you're quite ready to buy a house yet, maybe you need to save and prepare for that. Or maybe you just want to get used to the area before you commit to buying a house. Renting could be a great option for you, and the average price of rent is $1,240 a month, which is 13.3% cheaper than the national average and 12.9% cheaper than the state of Virginia. To live comfortably in Newport News, according to bestplaces.net, you really need to be making $49,320 a year on average per family and $42,400 a year on average per individual. And like I said, the average income in Newport News is just under $58,000, so it seems achievable, but depends on how you live. The next pro I'm going to talk about is schools. Now, I have to be careful when I talk about schools, and I'm not referring to school ratings when I say that. Newport News has a nice variety of private and public schools, and it's the home of Christopher Newport University. If schools matter to you, I recommend doing some research, and there's a few resources I'll share with you. Greatschools.org and schooldigger.com. Those are good resources. Now, when you read the reviews, just beware that sometimes it's the kids leaving these reviews, not always the parents. The next pro I want to mention is the weather. I believe we have beautiful weather here. Now, it depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from San Diego, okay, you may not feel the same, but I came here from the Portland, Oregon area, which is beautiful in the summertime and even the springtime, but tends to get a lot of rain and the weather's a little colder there. However, here it's beautiful, especially in the month of September and October, and I would say May is my favorite month of the year. It starts getting hot in June, and July really starts cooking. We usually get into the 90s, possibly over 100 in the month of July. Even towards the end of June, we see a lot of weeks where it goes into the 90s. The average humidity is right around 68%, and August is definitely the most humid month, and we see about a 74% humidity level. Then April is the least humid month, and we see that at about 62% on average. As I said, July is the hottest month, and it averages around 90 degrees, and then the lowest month would be January, which is an average of 33 degrees. However, sometimes it does go below freezing, but we don't get any extreme cold weather here. We get barely any snow. Average about 5 inches per year is what we see. It's rare that it snows more than once or twice during the season, and it doesn't usually stick. Sometimes it does. I remember back in 2014 or 15, when I first moved here, we had about 8 inches of snow on the ground both of those years, and everybody kept telling me this is not normal. And I'm like, yeah, right. It certainly seems normal to me. Turns out it's not normal. If you like to go sledding with your kids, probably not going to happen here, because another thing about this area is it is flat. Now, if you drive up north or you go out west, it's not far before you'll see some hills, but if you live in Newport News or anywhere in the Hampton Roads area, you'll find it to be very flat. On average, we get about 46 inches of rain every year, so nothing crazy. Again, I believe that the weather in Newport News is a pro, but depending on where you're coming from, you may disagree, and that's fair. Even though I believe the weather is great here, I have to sneak in this little caveat that we do sometimes have storms. So I'm going to sneak a con in right now and just tell you that this is a coastal area. And with that comes some tropical storms, some nor'easters, and sometimes we get the tail end of that hurricane that Florida and South Carolina sends up to us. Overall, though, I have never experienced anything too extreme here. The last pro I'm going to mention before we get into the cons is the parks. And this is something, actually, you know what? I gotta have Elijah tell you about this. Elijah loves parks. He loves them. And the Newport News Park is definitely worth mentioning. It has 8,000 acres and it's the largest municipal park in the United States. Another park is the Huntington Park, which is located near the James River Bridge, and the King Lincoln Park. I know, we haven't been there yet. We're gonna go. The last park I'm gonna mention is the Sandy Bottom Park. And I'm mentioning that even though it's in Hampton, it borders Newport News, so it's basically a Newport News, and it happens to be Elijah's favorite park. It is so cool. There are lots of trails that go around the lake, and it's got a nice wildlife area. Definitely worth checking out if you're into parks like Elijah. Elijah, pay attention, man. We're doing a video here. Come on, man. Good job. Check out this shirt that Elijah got me. Isn't it cool? If you're finding any value from this video, do me a quick favor and smash that like button and subscribe to this channel. It would mean a lot to Elijah. Now let's get into the cons of living in Newport News. But before we do that, I just want to mention crime in general, because all cities have crime, right? So if that's of any concern to you, I recommend doing some research on the city website or the police website, or a few other sources you may want to check with is mylocalcrime.com or crimemapping.com. The first con I'm going to mention is the traffic and the transportation. So the congestion that you'll experience is mostly during the peak hours, but we definitely have some traffic in Newport News, especially if you want to travel over to the south side. As I mentioned earlier, there's only a few tunnels to go through, and those tunnels can be very congested, and if there is a wreck, it might cost you an extra 2 hours. As far as public transportation, that is very limited. This is not an area you can move to and not own a vehicle. You pretty much have to have a car in most cases because it's very limited on public transportation. The next con I'll mention is weather. As I said earlier, as a pro, just to circle back to that, we do have some storms and some natural disasters that may occur that you need to just be aware of. Any area that has a lot of humidity and heat is going to have some storms. We also do have some flooding in Newport News, although it's not as bad as Norfolk or Virginia Beach. The elevation on average is 15 feet because we're a coastal area. Flood zones are a thing here, something to be aware of. If you're moving to Newport News, just make sure that you check the flood maps, because if you are in a flood zone, which there are parts of the peninsula that are, then you're going to be paying for flood insurance. It's a requirement. And that can run you anywhere from $400 to $1,400 to $2,400 per year, just depending on the flood zone. Another con that some people may consider a con is the industrial presence. The presence of large industrial facilities such as the shipyard can contribute to the pollution and noise in certain areas. This can impact the air quality, the overall living conditions. So that's something to consider. Another con I want to mention is the infrastructure and development. Some of the buildings in urban areas are outdated, in need of repairs and renovations, which is happening at a fairly rapid rate. However, with that comes some noise and construction chaos and even more traffic congestions. The last con I want to mention is there's nothing to do. Newport News, don't get me wrong, Elijah loves the parks, but outside of that, there's not a lot going on. I would say the hottest, most poppin' area is the city center area. That area is pretty cool. I enjoy hanging out there. There's actually a really cool spot called Salsa's where you can get some really good salsa and some good Mexican food, but after 10 or 11 o'clock at night, they push all the tables off to the side and they hit the lights and the fog machine, and there's a DJ up top, and that restaurant literally turns into a nightclub. They even have police there at night to keep an eye on it. The city center is a really cool area. It's got a nice spot to walk around and it can be fun, but outside of that, there's not a lot going on. However, you're not far from Williamsburg, where you can go to Busch Gardens, and just north of that, you can get to Richmond, where there's a lot popping in Richmond. Or if you drive over to the south side of Hampton Roads, you may find more to do in Norfolk or Virginia Beach. If you are moving to Newport News, or just thinking about moving to Newport News, or maybe you don't know where you want to move, but you're coming this way, let me know if I can help. I'm here as a resource to you. Again, my number is in the description, and it's right here on the screen. And also, if you want to see any more videos about anything specific, just comment below and I'm happy to make a video for you.